If you're working with a Blackmagic ISO system, you already know the upsides. You don't have to sync all your footage, everything saves to the same hard drive, and you even get a DaVinci Resolve file with all of your angles baked in for future changes. But as a studio of Adobe editors, that's not all that helpful. Today we're going to talk about the workflow we found to be the best for working with Blackmagic ATEM ISO footage in Adobe Premiere Pro. For a while, we were simply dragging the live cut of our ISO footage onto a timeline, but this workflow leaves a lot to be desired. The live cut is rendered as a single clip, meaning you can't color grade different angles without either recutting the entire project or copy and pasting each color preset to each corresponding angle. Each one takes a comical amount of time and flies in the face of everything we stand for. For us, the whole point of real-time production is saving time. So ironically enough, we've spent countless hours on R&D, finding the best way to make the most of our ATEM from both an efficiency and a quality standpoint. You're going to want to start with your ATEM software, and making sure your encoding is set to HyperDeck High, the highest quality offered, so you have the best footage possible to work with. You'll take your SSD and load up DaVinci Resolve. Resolve? I thought you said we were using Premiere. I did. As backwards as it may sound, my favorite way to edit in Premiere starts in Resolve. Once you open up the project file your ATEM provides, you're going to export it as a FileCut7 XML file. This is a really simple data file that Premiere can interpret to get your DaVinci data into Adobe. Now we can close up Resolve and get into the software we all know, love, and probably also hate at least a little. Once this project has been opened in Premiere, we're going to have our live cut on our timeline. What I like to do is raise this to video track 5 and drag in the 4 ISO camera angles beneath it. Since our audio is recorded externally, this is also when we'll bring it in and sync it up. This might vary by camera and system, but we've found moving our audio forward by 3 frames matches it up visually better than the ATEM does defaultly, probably because of a little bit of input lag from the Rodecaster. You can start editing here, but I like to color grade the footage first. This is where all this work really becomes worthwhile. You're going to open Lumetri, and instead of grading the clip, you're going to color the source. This will apply these color changes to the source, or the entire clip, and every single time it shows within the live cut. Once I'm happy with one angle, I'll do the next, and so on until everything matches and looks the way I want. Since our studio's specialty is podcasts, I'll share a little editing secret that's especially handy for podcast editors. You can save a ton of editing time by transcribing your podcast in Premiere's text panel and removing any pauses. Though this tool can save a lot of time, I do typically keep my pause time pretty long, at around 1.5 seconds, so we're not cutting out anything but the most awkward pauses without human discretion. We also have musical performances on this particular show that often get falsely flagged as pauses, so I've gotten into the habit of duplicating my timeline before I remove these pauses, and then reinserting any clips that may have been mangled. Once all of this has been done, most of the editing can be done as normal. If I want to change the timing of a camera switch, I can hold Command and drag the cut wherever it needs to be. Or if I want to switch to an entirely different camera angle, I'll make necessary cuts and disable the other clips during that segment. I personally prefer the enable-disable workflow, but some people do prefer otherwise. Premiere does have their own multicam workflow, but I've personally preferred this workflow and how clearly visual it can be. Since our live cuts are done by experienced professionals, there's typically very few departures from the original edit required. And because whatever someone has enabled or disabled is clearly visible at all times, you can ensure you're happy with the diversity of your cuts from a glance, or even see how far you've differed from your live cut in the editing process. Without making this too much of an overall editing tutorial, I'll just say that the main goal of your podcast should be to respect your audience's time. You can keep your viewer more engaged by creating an intro that hints at conversation topics, or cutting out pauses and mistakes throughout your show. Switching dynamically between cameras doesn't hurt either. Though returns can start to diminish the more you polish your production, you can still see, hear, and even feel the difference between a podcast that respects its viewers' time and one that doesn't. If you want to create the best podcast possible without worrying about the production and editing that comes alongside it, check us out at BrainStem.Studio at the link in the description. If you're creating your own multicam content with an ATEM, hopefully this video helped you solidify your post-production workflow to make your content even better. Either way, subscribe for future videos, and as always, thanks for watching me ramble on about editing for this long for some reason. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's this much of a nerd.